On.
A pleasant good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Cheryl Francis. It gives me great pleasure to speak to you this evening on the topic, should same-sex couples be allowed to adopt? The purpose of this presentation is to sensitize you on the negative effects of allowing same-sex couples to adopt a child. In this world that we live in, there are many children that have gone through many trials and tribulations. Adoption has been an ancient practice that has sought to take care of those orphaned and abandoned children who have been in most cases been victimized and wounded. Engraved on the moral laws, the main reason for adoption was to advance the good of the child. The question is, are we advancing the good of the child, allowing same-sex couples to adopt an already bruised, battered, and emotionally distraught child? I say no. This is why I vehemently oppose same-sex adoption. First of all, Christian beliefs, which is our premise for moral and social conduct in society, is disregarded and altered as a child is placed in an unnatural setting in the care of same-sex parents. God created man and woman, and according to the Bible, asked them to be fruitful and multiply in Genesis 1:27-28. This is an indication that nature dictates that children should be produced and raised by heterosexual partners. Going against this principle is simply telling God we wish to satisfy selfish desires rather than obey Him. This is a deliberate disregard of Christian virtues. Database Book 2004, page 110, confirmed that the norm in nature is that both mother and father should nurture offsprings. Consequently, to legally allow adoption by gay couples is to encourage what is an unnatural upbringing. Catherine Hornby, in her 2013 article, disclosed the writings of Adriano Pessina, Director of Bioethics at the Catholic University of the Sacred Heart. He stated, "The human is the masculine and the feminine. The monogamous family is the ideal place to learn the meaning of human relations and is the environment where the best form of growth is possible." I hold the stance that same-sex adoption should not be allowed because it is total disregard for the child's rights as he or she is deprived of the figure of the missing parent. Everyone speaks of the right of the couple to have a chance to adopt a child. How about the rights of the child? The child has a right to have no reason to question why they have two parents of the same sex as opposed to their friends. The child has a right to a fair chance of exposure to both types of parental upbringing. Database 2004 says, the child's primary role models are his or her parents. Bringing a heterosexual child up in a gay household gives the child a distorted view of a minority sexuality, just as a girl brought up by two men would fail to benefit from a female influence. The child has a right to be given a fair chance to decide his or her own sexual orientation. Placing that child with same-sex parents indicates to the child that having one type of parent is ideal, and since parents are heavy influences on their children, they may be influenced to follow the same pattern in life. Children need to be exposed to a balance in the sex role provided by a straight couple. Bailey 2003 has indicated that children in gay families show disturbances in gender identity and in gender role behavior. Not only will both the child and parents be confused as to how to negotiate the sexual shades of showing affection, taking a shower, changing clothes, dealing with puberty and menstruation, but there will undeniably be some amount of uneasiness for a 12-year-old living with two men who are in truth complete strangers to her. Whereas a heterosexual couple will have a woman to negotiate these issues and a male to provide affirmative support. A gay couple does not provide this balance. Also important is the idea that same-sex adoption makes the child more vulnerable to the exposure of social pressures. This significantly explains why same-sex adoption should not be allowed. Gays and lesbians have been verbally and in instances physically brutalized for having their perceived unnatural sexual orientations. They are quite aware of the society's refusal to fully accept them, especially in Caribbean countries like Jamaica and St. Lucia. Placing the child with gay parents just predisposes them to being teased, ridiculed, and laughed at because their parents are gay. Since it is not a common practice and most of the other children have heterosexual parents, they may feel like the odd person. Some parents may even encourage their children not to have any affiliations with children of gay parents. All this shows how the stigma attached to gays may be extended to the innocent child and cause possible psychological, social, emotional, and at times even physical or sexual abuse from society. Do not just take my word for it. Listen to the testimony of Abby Rudder, a therapist, lesbian, and adoptive mother, in an article by the National Adoption Information Clearinghouse in 2000. She acknowledged that children will be teased, and she takes great pains to prepare her gay and lesbian clients for some of the problems that their children will face. She indicated that her 9-year-old has become very adept at knowing when to tell people that she has 2 mommies. Why, must I ask, should we subject a child to such a distasteful life to always have to answer to questions about why their parents are this way and that way? This can break down a child immensely, especially those orphans who may already have endured too much to last their lifetime. Some persons are in agreement, however, with same-sex couples being allowed to adopt a child. They believe that there are no significant differences between children with same-sex parents and children with heterosexual parents on diverse measures. This position is based on the assumption that if the child is nurtured in a loving environment, the gender of the parents should be unimportant. The assumptions are supported by the American Psychological Association in the Daily Signal in 2012, where Kim and Marshall stated, in 2005, not a single study has found children of lesbian or gay parents to be disadvantaged in any significant respect relative to children of heterosexual parents. On the contrary, research in later years shows significantly bad effects of children being raised by the same-sex couples. According to Salins 2014, in his biggest study, he concludes, emotional problems are over twice as prevalent for children with same-sex parents than for children with opposite-sex parents. It is clear that allowing same-sex couples to adopt is detrimental to the child, and it presents an unnatural home setting and misguided roles for these children to pattern. Also, it does not create that balance that children need and places them at a disadvantage in receiving the benefits that different parents can contribute in their lives and in helping shape their adult lives. At most, it places them in a compromising position to be faced with social pressures that can further defeat them emotionally, socially, and psychologically. Doing this is not for the good of the child, and same-sex adoption should not be allowed. I will now entertain the question from course facilitator Ms. Tiffany Gordon Johnson. She says, "Hi Cheryl, many proponents for gay adoption argue that it is better for a child to be raised by a committed, loving same-sex couple than by a single parent. What are your thoughts on this?" To answer this question, some parents believe that as long as the parent loves that child and can cultivate them into sensible, caring individuals, then who the child is nurtured by is not an issue. Raising a child by a single parent is quite a normal situation in every society, as we know it. However, gay parenting is a move away from our norms and has too many adverse effects on the poor child. According to Kim and Marshall 2012, compared to young adults in traditional intact families, young adults whose mothers had a same-sex relationship tended to far worse than their peers, as they were far more likely to report being sexually victimized, to be on welfare, or to be currently unemployed. They further stated that young adults whose fathers had a same-sex relationship were significantly more likely to have contemplated suicide, to have a sexually transmitted infection, or to have been forced to have sex against their will. All these negative behaviors that occur as a result of a child being placed in the custody of gay parents should indicate that doing this is not in the best interest of the child. Same-sex adoption should not be allowed. I thank you.